At Thanksgiving, my daughter disowned me over breakfast. I was still holding the $22 million estate as fact. I walked to the front door. Behind me, I heard whispers. Quick. Urgent. The sound of people who had more to discuss once I left. The door closed with the same soft click it had made 1,000 times when I'd visited. But this time, I wasn't coming back tomorrow. This time, I had questions that needed answers. Has someone in your family ever made you question everything you thought you knew about love and loyalty? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. If you've ever wondered how far someone would go to steal a life built over 40 years, this story will shake you to your core. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover they were planning your destruction from the very beginning? Has someone in your family ever made you question everything you thought you knew about love and loyalty? Do you know someone who's been erased from their own story while everyone watched in silence? This is about calculated betrayal disguised as family conversation. This is about a woman who discovered that the people closest to her had been forging documents, stealing her identity, and planning to take everything her late husband built, starting with a Thanksgiving morning ambush that was 3 years in the making. Follow along as we expose how a mother fought back against her own daughter and a manipulative man who thought a quiet Southern woman would be easy prey. By the end of this story, you'll understand why the most dangerous battles happen over coffee and contracts, not screaming matches. The coffee was still warm when my daughter looked me in the eye and said I was no longer her family. I sat at her kitchen table in Raleigh, the same table where I'd helped her with homework 20 years ago. The morning light came through blinds I'd helped her hang. Pumpkin spice candles burned on the counter, my Thanksgiving gift from the day before. Everything looked normal except for the man sitting beside her, silent as a judge. "Mom, this is hard for me to say." Her voice sounded rehearsed. "But I think it's time we established some boundaries." I kept my hands wrapped around the coffee mug. Warm ceramic. Real. Steady. "What kind of boundaries, honey?" "Complete ones." The words came out flat. "I don't want you in my life anymore. We've grown apart, and I think it's better if we just stop." The man beside her, her fiancé from Atlanta, reached into a leather folder. Like he'd been waiting for his cue. "We've prepared some paperwork," he said, sliding a document across the table. "Just to make everything official." I stared at the paper. My name was on it. Legal language I didn't understand. But one phrase jumped out: voluntary cessation of family contact. The paper was already notarized. "When did you have this notarized?" I asked. My daughter looked at her fiancé. Just for a second. But I caught it. "Tuesday," she said. Tuesday was 3 days before Thanksgiving. 3 days before this conversation. Someone had planned this moment like a business meeting. I set down my coffee cup. The click against the saucer sounded loud in the sudden quiet. "You know what, sweetheart? I think I'll head home." I stood up slowly. My purse. My keys. The ceramic turkey salt shaker she'd made in 3rd grade still sat on her windowsill, next to a photo of her father that I'd framed. "Will you sign it?" the fiancé asked. I looked at him for the first time that morning. Really looked. Sharp suit. Expensive watch. Eyes that calculated before they felt. "I'll think about it." "There's a time limit," he said. 30 days. 30 days. Like I was being evicted from my own daughter's heart. I walked to the front door. Behind me, I heard whispers. Quick. Urgent. The sound of people who had more to discuss once I left. The door closed with the same soft click it had made 1,000 times when I'd visited. But this time, I wasn't coming back tomorrow. This time, I had questions that needed answers. If someone tried to erase you from your own family, would you fight back or walk away? Subscribe, you'll need to see how this ends. The drive back to Greenville took 2 hours. 2 hours to think about notarized papers and 30-day deadlines. 2 hours to remember that my late husband Robert had always said, "Maggie, if something doesn't feel right, trust your gut. Then check the paperwork." By the time I pulled into my driveway, I knew exactly where to start. Comment planned if you think this conversation was orchestrated from the beginning. The house felt different when I returned to Greenville. Not emptier, but sharper, like every corner held a question. I set my purse on the kitchen counter and noticed things I'd stopped seeing. Robert's reading glasses, still folded beside the newspaper from last Sunday. His coffee mug in the dish drainer, the one with the faded logo from his construction company. The half-finished crossword puzzle he'd left on the side table 8 months ago. Everything stayed the same when someone dies. Except the people left behind. I made fresh coffee and sat in Robert's chair, the brown leather recliner that squeaked when you leaned back. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Patterson's house next door. Her kitchen light was on. She'd probably heard about the troubles by now. Small towns keep secrets like sieves hold water. The phone rang. "Mrs. Patterson, right on schedule." "Margaret, honey, how did it go with your daughter?" "About like you'd expect, Ruth. That boy she's marrying, there's something about him I don't trust." Ruth had met him exactly once, at Robert's funeral. But she'd watched him work the room like a politician, shaking hands and collecting business cards while the rest of us grieved. "I'm starting to think you're right." After we hung up, I walked through the house room by room. Robert's den. Our bedroom. The guest room where my daughter used to stay when she visited. Each room felt like a museum of a life that someone wanted to erase. In the bedroom closet, behind Robert's winter coats, sat the cedar trunk. 40 years of marriage, and I'd only opened it twice. Once when we bought it. Once when Robert put his important papers inside and showed me where he kept the key. "Everything that matters is in there, Maggie. If something happens to me, you'll know what to do." I'd always thought he meant insurance papers and the deed to the house. Simple things. Widow things. The brass key was still in my jewelry box, wrapped in the same blue velvet cloth Robert had used when he first showed me the trunk. My hands didn't shake when I picked it up. They should have. Maybe I was past the point of shaking. Back in the living room, the mail sat unopened on the coffee table. 3 envelopes. All addressed to Robert. All from Fulton County, Georgia. I opened the first one. Legal notice about estate proceedings. The second one. Request for updated beneficiary information. The third one made me sit down hard in Robert's chair. Final notice regarding amendments to last will and testament of Robert Hayes Patterson. Amendments. Robert had been dead for 8 months. Who amends a dead man's will? I read the letter twice. 3 times. The words didn't change, but my understanding did. Someone had been busy with Robert's name. Someone had been filing papers in Georgia while I'd been grieving in South Carolina. Someone had been making changes to documents I'd never seen. The cedar trunk sat in the bedroom, waiting. The key felt warm in my palm. 3 envelopes from Fulton County. All addressed to Robert. All dated after his death. Ever gotten mail for someone who's been gone for months? What would you do? Tomorrow, I'd open that trunk. Tonight, I'd call Samuel Hayes in Charlotte, Robert's old attorney who'd retired but still answered his phone when widows needed help. Some conversations can't wait for business hours. The trunk opened with the same brass click it had made for 40 years. But what I found inside made my hands shake. Robert had been a careful man. Everything was organized in manila folders with neat labels written in his precise handwriting. Insurance. Property deeds. Investment records. Personal letters. But at the bottom, wrapped in a blue cloth that matched the key's velvet, lay a folder marked simply, "For Maggie." Inside, a handwritten note on Robert's letterhead, "Maggie, if anyone questions our life together, everything you need is here. I've left instructions with Samuel Hayes. Trust him like you trust me. All my love, R." My throat closed up. Robert had known. Somehow, he'd known someone might try to challenge what we'd built together. The documents told a story I'd never fully understood. Robert wasn't just a small-town contractor who'd done well. He was a businessman who'd quietly built an empire. Commercial properties in 3 states. Investment accounts I'd never heard of. A trust fund that made my modest Social Security check look like pocket change. $22 million. That's what the estate summary said. $22 million that I'd been living above like a woman who thought she was poor. But the real shock was in the will itself. Page after page of legal language, but the meaning was clear. Everything went to me first, then to our daughter after my death. Simple. Clean. Protected. I spread the documents across the bed like a puzzle. Original will dated 5 years ago. Amended will dated 2 years ago. Final amendment dated just 6 weeks before Robert died. Every document bore Robert's real signature, the one I'd watched him write on birthday cards and Christmas checks for 40 years. The careful R that looked like a backwards P. The way he dotted his I-S twice when he was being extra careful. These signatures were real. Which meant the documents from Fulton County were something else entirely. Hidden documents change everything. Subscribe so you don't miss how she uses what she found. I picked up the manila envelope marked Recent Changes, M, to verify. The handwriting looked like Robert's, but something felt wrong. The paper was too white. Too crisp. Like it had been printed yesterday instead of months ago. Inside, a single sheet with a typed message, Maggie, I've made some final changes to protect you and our daughter. Samuel Hayes has copies. If anything happens to me, don't trust anyone else with these papers. Love, Robert. But at the bottom, instead of Robert's careful signature, someone had tried to copy it. The R was too round. The I-S weren't double-dotted. The pen pressure was all wrong. Someone had tried to forge my husband's handwriting. Someone had access to his personal letterhead. Someone knew enough about our life to write a convincing fake letter. At the bottom of the manila envelope, I found something that made my blood turn cold. A business card. Leather texture. Gold lettering. Marcus Webb, estate planning attorney, Atlanta, Georgia. My daughter's fiancé. At the bottom, a manila envelope marked Recent Changes, M, to verify. I'd never seen it before. Would you open that envelope immediately or wait? Tell me your choice. The morning sun had moved across the bedroom floor. The coffee was cold. But the papers in front of me were warm with possibility. Someone had underestimated a quiet woman from South Carolina. Someone was about to learn that Southern hospitality has limits. Time to call Samuel Hayes. The retired attorney read Robert's handwriting without speaking. When he looked up, his expression had changed completely. Samuel Hayes worked out of a small office above Morrison's Bakery on East Boulevard in Charlotte. The stairs creaked when you climbed them. The coffee was always fresh. The advice was always honest. Margaret, sit down. I'd driven 3 hours with the cedar trunk documents in a canvas bag beside me. The real papers and the fake ones. Samuel needed to see everything. He spread Robert's authentic will across his desk first. Ran his finger along the signatures. Checked the notary seals with a magnifying glass he kept in his desk drawer. This is Robert's work, he said. Every mark, every word choice. I helped him write this. Then he looked at the fake letter with Marcus Webb's business card. This, he said slowly, is garbage. Samuel had known Robert for 30 years. They'd served on the church finance committee together. They'd played golf badly every other Saturday until Robert's knees gave out. If anyone could spot a fake Robert signature, it was Samuel. Someone's been practicing your husband's name, Margaret. But they're not very good at it. He pointed to the forged R with the tip of his pen. Robert always started his signature with a tiny pause. Made that first letter deeper than the rest. This person rushes through it. I pulled out the Fulton County legal notices. Samuel read them like a detective examining evidence. These are filed in Georgia. Your husband was a South Carolina resident. Why would he file amendments in Georgia? He wouldn't. Exactly. Samuel leaned back in his chair. Margaret, someone's running a con on your family. And they're using your daughter to do it. The weight of it settled on me like a heavy quilt. My daughter wasn't just rejecting me. She was helping someone steal from me. What do we do? Samuel pulled out a yellow legal pad. Started making a list in his neat handwriting. First, we document everything. Every signature, every date, every inconsistency. Second, we contact Fulton County and request all filings related to Robert's estate. Third, we find out who Marcus Webb really is. Fourth, we protect you. He looked up from his list. Margaret, this isn't about money. This is about someone trying to erase you from your own life. Robert trusted you to protect what he built. So that's what we're going to do. I felt something I hadn't felt since Robert died. Not alone. How long will this take? Depends on how deep this goes. But Margaret? Samuel's voice was gentle but firm. We're going to find out exactly what Marcus Webb thought he could get away with. Samuel pulled out a magnifying glass. These signatures, he said slowly. I know this hand. It's not Robert's. Ever discovered someone forged documents in your family? How far would you go for the truth? The drive back to Greenville felt different. I had a plan now. I had someone who believed me. And I had Robert's real papers, the ones that told the truth about who we were and what we'd built together. Marcus Webb had picked the wrong widow to mess with. Some fights choose you. This one chose me. The clerk's voice dropped to a whisper. Ma'am, someone's been very busy with your husband's name. Jennifer Martinez worked the probate desk at Fulton County Courthouse in Atlanta. 26 years old, sharp eyes, the kind of person who noticed when things didn't add up. Samuel had called ahead, asked her to pull Robert's file as a favor. I've been doing this job for 4 years, she said, sliding a thick folder across the counter. Never seen anything like this. The folder was stuffed with documents. All filed in the past 6 months. All bearing Robert's name. All submitted by Marcus Webb on behalf of surviving business partner arrangements. Business partner? I asked. My husband worked alone. Jennifer nodded. That's what caught my attention. Plus, look at these filing dates. She spread the papers like cards on a table. October 15th, November 3rd, December 1st, January 8th. Ma'am, when did your husband pass? October 12th. Jennifer pointed to the October 15th filing. This amendment was submitted 3 days after he died. Filed at 9:47 a.m. on a Monday. I stared at the timestamp. Robert's funeral was on October 14th. A Sunday. While I was still picking out flowers for his grave, someone was downtown filing paperwork in his name. There's more, Jennifer said. She pulled out a power of attorney document. This gives Marcus Webb full authority over your husband's estate. Says it was signed on October 10th. October 10th. The day Robert went into hospice care. The day he couldn't even hold a pen. I was with him that whole day, I said. He never signed anything. Ma'am, I'm not supposed to say this, but... Jennifer looked around the office. I think someone's been forging your husband's signature. And I think they've done it before. She opened her computer screen. Typed Marcus Webb's name into the search bar. He's filed similar documents for 3 other estates in the past 2 years. All elderly men. All with complicated family situations. When corruption hides in legal paperwork, most people never catch it. Subscribe to see how Margaret exposes the truth. 3 other families. 3 other widows who probably sat in their empty houses wondering why their late husband's wishes seemed to change after death. What happened to those families? Jennifer's face went dark. Two of them lost everything. Contested wills, forged amendments, family members who suddenly had legal authority. The court sided with the paperwork. And the third? Still fighting. Been in court for 18 months. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Marcus Webb wasn't just stealing from me. He was running a business. Jennifer, I need copies of everything. I can't give you copies of other people's files. Just Robert's. Just what Marcus Webb filed using my husband's name. She hesitated. Then pulled out her card key and started the copy machine. Ma'am, if this is what I think it is, you need more than copies. You need a forensic document examiner. Jennifer handed me a manila folder stuffed with papers. These were filed on the same day, by someone claiming to be Robert's business partner. Problem is, Robert died alone. Drop a triangular flag if you see the red flag here. The drive back to Greenville felt longer than usual. The folder sat on the passenger seat like evidence of a crime I was just beginning to understand. Marcus Webb had picked my family for a reason. My quiet daughter. My modest lifestyle. My husband who'd built wealth without showing it. He'd studied us. Planned this. Probably started working on my daughter before Robert was even gone. Time to learn everything I could about Marcus Webb. The document examiner held Robert's real signature under the light. Ma'am, someone's been practicing your husband's name. Dr. Helen Reeves worked out of a small office in Knoxville, Tennessee. Former FBI forensic specialist, now private consultant. Samuel had driven with me because he said I needed a witness for what we were about to learn. I've examined the authentic samples you brought, Dr. Reeves said, pointing to Robert's real signatures from our bank records. Now let me show you what Marcus Webb submitted to the court. She placed the forged power of attorney under a lighted magnifying lens. Connected to a computer screen so we could see every detail blown up 10 times normal size. See how the pen pressure changes here? She traced the fake signature with a laser pointer. Your husband wrote with consistent pressure. Heavy downstrokes, light upstrokes. Natural rhythm. The screen showed Robert's real signature in green overlay. The forged one in red. This person practices in sections. Writes the R slowly, then rushes through Obert. Stops completely before starting the last name. Your husband wrote his full name in one fluid motion. Samuel leaned forward. How certain are you? 100%. These are forgeries. Crude ones. Dr. Reeves pulled up another screen. But here's what's really interesting. The metadata from the digital documents. She clicked through file properties like a detective examining fingerprints. Every document Marcus Webb filed was created on the same laptop. A Dell Inspiron registered to Marcus Webb Consulting, Atlanta. The files were created between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. over several nights in September and October. September. A month before Robert died. Someone had been preparing to steal from us while my husband was still alive. Dar. Reeves, can you tell when the signatures were added? Based on ink analysis and paper fiber testing, these signatures were added after the documents were printed. Probably within 24 hours of filing. She showed us one more screen. A timeline that made my stomach drop. October 10th, 2:15 a.m., document created on Webb's laptop. October 10th, 2:47 a.m., document printed. October 12th, your husband passes away. October 15th, 9:47 a.m., document filed with forged signature. Someone had created fake papers while Robert was dying. Waited until he was gone. Then filed them like they were real. Ma'am, this isn't sloppy work, Dr. Reeves said. This is systematic fraud. Professional level. This person has done this before. Samuel pulled out his phone. Margaret, we need to file an emergency motion to freeze the estate. Today. Will the court listen? With this evidence? They'll have to. Dr. Reeves handed me a bound report. 50 pages of analysis, comparisons, and conclusions. Scientific proof that someone had stolen Robert's identity to steal his life's work. Mrs. Patterson, I've testified in federal court about document fraud. This case is stronger than most I've seen. The forger left digital fingerprints everywhere. The drive back to Charlotte felt like racing against time. Samuel was already calling the courthouse, scheduling an emergency hearing. His phone rang constantly, other attorneys, court clerks, people who could help us move fast. Margaret, when we file this motion, everything changes. Your daughter will know we're fighting back. Marcus Webb will know we have proof. Good, I said. Let them know. The metadata showed file creation at 2:47 a.m. on December 15. Robert had been gone since October. When you see proof of betrayal, do you confront immediately or gather more evidence first? By sunset, we'd filed a motion to freeze all estate assets pending investigation. Emergency hearing scheduled for Monday morning. Marcus Webb's game was about to end. He just didn't know it yet. Time to see how a con man handles being caught. Hidden in Robert's desk drawer, I found the letter he'd never sent, addressed to our daughter, explaining everything he'd built for her future. Back home that evening, while Samuel prepared for Monday's hearing, I searched through Robert's personal effects one more time. His desk in the den was exactly as he'd left it. Pens in the same cup. Bills stacked in the same corner. Calendar still turned to October. But tucked behind the calendar, almost like he'd hidden it on purpose, was an envelope with our daughter's name written in Robert's handwriting. My dearest Rebecca, it began. By the time you read this, I'll be gone, but everything I've worked for will remain to take care of you and your mother. The letter was dated September 15, almost a month before he died. Robert's real handwriting, clear and strong despite his illness. I know you worry about money and your future. I know you think your mother and I lived modestly because we had to. The truth is, we lived simply because we chose to. What we saved, what we built, what we invested, all of it was for you. He'd written 3 pages explaining the estate. The commercial properties that generated monthly income. The investment accounts that grew steadily for decades. The trust fund designed to provide for our daughter's children and grandchildren. I've structured everything so your mother is protected first. She's earned that security through 40 years of partnership. After she's gone, you'll inherit everything, but not before you're mature enough to handle it responsibly. That line made me pause. Robert had been worried about our daughter's judgment. Even before Marcus Webb appeared. If anyone tries to convince you that your mother doesn't deserve her inheritance, remember this: she was my partner in building everything we have. Without her support, her sacrifices, her quiet strength, none of this would exist. The letter continued with specific instructions. Bank account numbers. Property addresses. Contact information for trusted advisors. Most importantly, Rebecca, never let anyone convince you that family is disposable. Money comes and goes. Family, when it's real, lasts forever. Take care of your mother. She'll take care of you. At the bottom, he'd added a postscript that made my eyes water. If something happens to me before I can give you this letter, I've left copies with Samuel Hayes and in the cedar trunk. Your mother will know where to find them. Trust her. She's stronger than she looks. Robert had known. Maybe not the specific details, but he'd sensed something. He'd protected us both, even from the grave. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Tomorrow, Samuel would present this in court along with the forensic evidence. A man's love letter to his family, contrasted against a stranger's forged theft. The last line made me cry: if something happens to me, Maggie will know what to do. She always was the stronger one. Ever found a letter that changed everything you thought you knew about someone you loved? Outside, the October evening felt cool and clear. Tomorrow would bring the first real confrontation. But tonight, I sat in Robert's chair and read his letter again. He'd known Marcus Webb was coming. He'd prepared for this fight. Now it was my turn to finish what he started. Samuel's text was 3 words, motion granted. Breathe. I was sitting in my kitchen Monday morning when the message came through. The emergency hearing had lasted 2 hours. Samuel said the judge took one look at the forensic evidence and signed the preservation order immediately. All estate assets frozen pending investigation. Effective immediately. 24 hours ago, Marcus Webb thought he was weeks away from controlling a $22 million estate. This morning, he couldn't touch a penny of it. My phone rang at 10:47 a.m. My daughter's number. Mom? Her voice sounded different. Smaller. We need to talk. I'm listening. Marcus says you filed some kind of lawsuit against us. Not against you, honey. Against fraud. Silence on the line. Then, what are you talking about? Your fiancé has been forging your father's signature on legal documents. Trying to steal the estate Robert left for both of us. That's impossible. Marcus has been helping us understand Dad's wishes. Rebecca, your father's been dead for 8 months. Marcus filed amendments to his will 3 days after the funeral. Another pause. Longer this time. Mom, you're confused. The grief is making you. I have forensic proof. Scientific analysis. Your father's real handwriting compared to Marcus's forgeries. I could hear whispers in the background. Marcus coaching her, probably. Telling her what to say next. The court has frozen all the estate assets, I continued. Nothing moves until we sort out what's real and what's fake. Mom, you don't understand what you've done. Her voice cracked on those words. For the first time since Thanksgiving, she sounded like my daughter instead of someone reading from a script. What don't I understand? He's not going to just let this go. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing. Fast. Nervous. Rebecca, are you afraid of him? I have to go. Click. Dial tone. One court order changed everything. Subscribe to see how she handles the counterattack that's coming. The rest of Monday passed quietly. I worked in Robert's garden, pulling weeds from around the tomato plants he'd planted last spring. Physical work helped me think. By evening, I understood something important. My daughter wasn't just helping Marcus Webb steal from me. She was scared of him. That phone call wasn't anger. It was a warning. Tuesday morning brought a registered letter. Law Offices of Webb, Stanton and Associates, Atlanta, Georgia. Inside, 3 pages of legal threats and demands. Frivolous litigation. Emotional distress. Defamation of character. Cease and desist. The language was designed to scare me. Big words. Official letterhead. Deadline threats. But at the bottom of page 3, one line made me smile. Failure to withdraw motion will result in vigorous defense of Mr. Webb's professional reputation and business interests. Marcus Webb was scared. Scared enough to hire a law firm. Scared enough to threaten a quiet widow from South Carolina. Good. Scared people make mistakes. The daughter's voice cracked. Mom, you don't understand what you've done. He's not going to just let this go. When family threatens you for protecting what's yours, how do you respond? I called Samuel. We got a response. Threatening? Very. Perfect. That means we're on the right track. Time to see what Marcus Webb did when quiet widows refused to stay quiet. The memorial service program had Robert's photo and someone else's words. I sat in the back and listened to strangers rewrite our love story. Marcus had organized the service at a fancy funeral home in Atlanta. Celebrating the life of Robert Patterson. Black and gold invitations. Catered reception. Professional photographer. I hadn't been invited. Mrs. Patterson drove with me. Margaret, you sure about this? I need to see what they're telling people about Robert. The chapel was half full. Some faces I recognized, Robert's old golf buddies, a few neighbors from when we lived in Raleigh. But most were strangers. Well-dressed Atlanta people who'd never met my husband. Marcus stood at the podium like he was Robert's best friend. Robert Patterson was a visionary businessman who understood the importance of legacy planning, he said. He trusted me to help him structure his estate to provide maximum benefit for his surviving family members. Surviving family members. Plural. Like I didn't exist. Robert often spoke about ensuring his daughter's future security and independence. I'd been married to Robert for 40 years. He'd never mentioned Marcus Webb once. The program listed Marcus as family estate advisor and my daughter as beloved daughter and primary heir. My name appeared once, in small print, predeceased by wife Margaret. Predeceased. They'd killed me off on paper. During the reception, I stood near the memory table they'd set up. Photos of Robert from our wedding, vacation trips, family gatherings. Someone had removed me from half the pictures. Cut me out. Cropped me away. A photo from our 35th anniversary sat in a silver frame. In the original, Robert's arm was around my waist. In this version, his arm hung in empty space. Behind the reception table, I heard Marcus on his phone. Phase 2 starts Monday. The old woman won't see it coming. Phase 2. Like my grief was a business plan with stages. I moved closer, pretending to examine the flower arrangements. No, the preservation order is temporary, Marcus continued. My contact at the courthouse says we can challenge it on grounds of mental incompetence. Grief-induced confusion. Mental incompetence. Because a woman who questioned forged documents must be crazy. The daughter's cooperation is key. She signs the competency affidavit, we get guardianship, then liquidate everything before appeals process starts. Liquidate. Like Robert's life's work was just inventory to be sold. Timeline is critical. Probate moves slow, but money moves fast once we have the right signatures. I'd heard enough. More than enough. At the guest book table, I signed my name in careful handwriting, Margaret Patterson, Robert's wife of 40 years, still very much alive. Behind the reception table, I heard the fiancé on his phone, Phase 2 starts Monday. The old woman won't see it coming. Ever been to an event where you were the outsider in your own story? How did it feel? The drive home gave me time to process what I'd learned. Marcus Webb had a timeline. A plan. Associates who helped him steal from grieving families. But he'd made one mistake. He'd assumed I was just another confused widow who'd roll over and play dead. Time to show him what 40 years of marriage to a smart man had taught me about fighting back. The paralegal's hands shook as she slid the manila folder across the coffee shop table. I can't keep quiet about what I've seen. Jennifer Martinez had asked to meet me at a Starbucks halfway between Atlanta and Greenville. Wednesday morning, 8 a.m., before her shift started. She looked like she hadn't slept. Mrs. Patterson, I could lose my job for this. Then why are you here? Because what Marcus Webb is doing isn't legal. And you're not his first target. She opened the folder. Inside, photocopies of documents I'd never seen. Court filings from 3 other estates. All following the same pattern. William Morrison, age 73. Died of cancer in March 2022. Marcus Webb filed power of attorney 3 days after death. Family fought it for 6 months, lost everything to legal fees. She showed me the timeline. Documents created on Webb's laptop weeks before Morrison died. Signatures forged. Family members turned against each other through mediation sessions that were really manipulation tactics. Janet Coleman, age 68. Lost her husband in a car accident, June 2023. Webb approached her daughter at the funeral. Offered to help with the complicated estate paperwork. Same pattern. Laptop-created documents. Post-death filings. Family members coached to question the widow's mental state. Janet lost her house, her savings, everything. She's living with her sister in Florida now. Jennifer pulled out a third file. Thomas Rivera, age 71. Still fighting. His son hired a private investigator 6 months ago. What did they find? Marcus Webb isn't just an estate attorney. He's part of a network. They target widows whose husbands built wealth quietly. Rural families. People who don't flaunt money. She showed me a printed email chain between Marcus and someone named D. Stanton, apparently his business partner. They call it legacy redistribution. Take from confused elderly people and redistribute to more capable hands. More capable hands. Like stealing was a public service. How do they choose targets? Obituaries. Look for men who died with substantial estates but wives who seem unsophisticated. Your husband's obituary mentioned his construction business and your simple lifestyle. You were perfect. Jennifer pulled out her phone. Showed me Marcus Webb's LinkedIn profile. Estate planning specialist. Helping families navigate complex inheritances. 15 years experience. But when I scrolled down to his connections, I saw something that made my blood freeze. My daughter's LinkedIn profile. Connected to Marcus Webb since January, 2 months before Robert's diagnosis got serious. Mrs. Patterson, he's been grooming your daughter for almost a year. The engagement isn't real. It's just the final step in taking control of your family's money. When someone risks everything to tell you the truth, listen closely. Subscribe, you need to hear what she discovered about his past. Jennifer handed me a USB drive. Everything's on here. Emails, document metadata, victim profiles, bank records showing where the money goes after he steals it. Where does it go? Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Places where stolen money disappears forever. Jennifer opened another folder. Mrs. Margaret, meet the 3 families before you. None of them saw it coming either. Would you trust a stranger who risked their job to warn you? Comment yes or no. The USB drive felt heavy in my palm. Evidence of a crime that had destroyed 3 families and was halfway through destroying mine. But now I knew the truth. And Marcus Webb had no idea how much I'd learned. The conference room was designed to intimidate. Glass table, leather chairs, view of downtown Atlanta. I brought my canvas tote bag and Robert's original papers. Marcus Webb sat at the head of the table like he owned the building. 3 attorneys flanked him. Expensive suits. Gold watches. The kind of people who charged by the minute for breathing the same air as you. My daughter sat beside Marcus, but not close. She kept her hands folded in her lap and wouldn't meet my eyes. Samuel and I took chairs at the opposite end. My canvas bag looked shabby next to their leather briefcases. Good. Let them underestimate a woman who shopped at yard sales. Mrs. Patterson, Marcus began, we're here to resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Just forgery. His smile never moved. Grief can make people see things that aren't there. I reached into my canvas bag. Pulled out Dr. Reeves' forensic report. 50 pages bound in a blue cover. Page 12 shows your laptop created documents using my husband's name after he died. Mrs. Patterson. Page 18 compares your signature attempts to Robert's authentic handwriting. You failed to match his pen pressure, rhythm, and letter formation. I slid the report across the glass table. It made a soft sound, like truth landing. Page 25 shows timestamps. You were typing Robert's final amendments at 2:47 a.m. while he was already in the ground. Marcus's lead attorney picked up the report. Started reading. His expression changed as he turned pages. Page 31 lists your previous victims. William Morrison. Janet Coleman. Thomas Rivera. At Rivera's name, Marcus's jaw tightened. Just slightly. But I caught it. You have a pattern, Mr. Webb. Target grieving families. Turn children against parents. Forge documents. Steal estates. This is harassment, Marcus said. This is evidence. Samuel leaned forward. Mr. Webb, we also have testimony from courthouse personnel who've observed your filing patterns. Digital forensics from the FBI Document Analysis Unit. And sworn statements from 3 families you've previously defrauded. The room went completely silent. Marcus whispered something to his lead attorney. The attorney whispered back. Papers shuffled. Pens clicked. We'll need a recess, the attorney said. Take all the time you need, Samuel replied. The evidence isn't changing. During the 15-minute break, my daughter finally looked at me. Mom, is this all true? Every word. The signatures, the timeline, the other families? Rebecca, he's been planning this since before your father got sick. The engagement, the family separation, all of it, it's a business model. She stared at her hands. He told me you were being difficult about Dad's wishes. That you didn't understand modern estate planning. Honey, your father's wishes were simple. Take care of me, then take care of you. Everything else is Marcus's invention. When they returned from recess, Marcus's lead attorney spoke first. My client disputes these allegations but is willing to consider a settlement. No settlement, I said. Full investigation. Criminal charges. Recovery of stolen assets from other families. Marcus leaned forward. You don't know what you're dealing with, old woman. The mask was finally off. When I placed the signature analysis on the table, the fiancé's attorney whispered something urgent. His face went white. Ever been underestimated because of how you look or where you're from? How did you prove them wrong? Samuel smiled. Mr. Webb, I think we're done here. Sometimes the strongest weapon is just refusing to be afraid. The text came at midnight. Mom, I need to see you. Alone. Please. Rebecca drove to Greenville Thursday evening. Her car looked different in my driveway. Smaller somehow, like she'd shrunk since I'd seen her last. She knocked on the front door instead of walking in like she used to. I made coffee and we sat at my kitchen table, the one where she'd done homework and told me about first dates and college dreams. Mom, I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, honey. Yes, I do. Her voice was steady but her hands shook around the coffee mug. Marcus lied to me about everything. She pulled out her phone. Showed me text messages dating back to January. He told me Dad was hiding money from you. That you were financially irresponsible and would waste the inheritance. I read the messages. Marcus's words were calculated. Patient. Building doubt about me one text at a time. He said Dad wanted to protect the estate from your poor decisions. That's why he needed to file amendments. What else did he tell you? That you were getting early dementia. That grief was making you paranoid. That the kindest thing would be to limit your access to the estate before you lost it all. Each lie was crafted to turn love into betrayal. Make my daughter think cutting me off was protecting me. Rebecca, your father never spoke to Marcus Webb. Never hired him. Never wanted to change his will. She nodded. I know that now. How? I found his laptop Tuesday night. After the meeting in Atlanta. Her voice dropped. Mom, there are files on there. Templates for targeting families. Scripts for conversations. Instructions for managing emotional elderly widows. Managing emotional elderly widows. Like grief was a customer service problem. He has a folder called Patterson Family. With photos of our house, research on Dad's business, psychological profiles of both of us. She showed me screenshots. My daily routine mapped out. My grocery store. My church. My friends. Marcus Webb had been studying us like lab rats. The worst part is the audio files. Audio files? Recordings of our phone conversations. Mom, he's been recording me for months. Coaching me on what to say to you. How to isolate you. How to make you sign papers giving up your rights. Sometimes the people we push away are fighting for us. Subscribe to see if this family can heal after everything. Rebecca reached across the table and took my hand. First time she'd touched me since before Thanksgiving. I almost married someone who saw our family as a business opportunity. You didn't know. I should have known. Dad always said if something felt wrong, it probably was. Marcus felt wrong from the beginning, but he was so convincing. She handed me her phone. Mom, look at these text messages. He's been planning to marry me for my inheritance since before Dad died. Have you ever realized someone was using you? Share your story below. The messages showed a timeline that made my heart break. Marcus hadn't fallen in love with my daughter. He'd researched her, targeted her, groomed her to trust him over her own mother. But Rebecca was awake now. And we had evidence that could put Marcus Webb in prison. Time to finish what Robert started. No confession. Just a statement about protecting professional reputation and pursuing new opportunities. The breakup announcement appeared on Marcus Webb's LinkedIn page Friday morning. Professional. Bloodless. Like dissolving an engagement was just another business decision. Due to irreconcilable differences and divergent life goals, Marcus Webb and Rebecca Patterson have mutually decided to end their engagement. Mr. Webb wishes Ms. Patterson success in her future endeavors. Future endeavors. Like my daughter was a failed investment. Rebecca called me before I'd finished reading the post. Mom, he's gone. Gone where? Moved out of his apartment. Closed his law office. Left Atlanta completely. Samuel had warned me this might happen. Fraudsters run when they realize they can't win. But I wanted more than Marcus Webb's retreat. I wanted accountability. Justice for the families he destroyed before finding ours. Rebecca, we need to talk to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. About what? Criminal fraud. Elder abuse. Identity theft. Your ex-fiancé wasn't just stealing from us. He was running a criminal enterprise. The GBI office in Atlanta looked like every government building, fluorescent lights, industrial carpet, agents who'd seen everything twice. Agent Sarah Collins took our statement like she was building a prosecution case. Mrs. Patterson, based on your evidence, we're opening a full investigation into Mr. Webb's activities. She spread our documents across her desk. Forensic reports, victim files, financial records showing money trails to offshore accounts. We've been watching similar patterns in elder fraud cases. Your evidence connects several investigations we've been working separately. What happens next? We freeze Webb's accounts. Issue warrants for fraud and identity theft. Interview other victims. Rebecca sat beside me, quiet but steady. Agent Collins, what about the other families? The ones who lost everything? If we can prove systematic fraud, they might be able to recover some losses through asset forfeiture proceedings. Asset forfeiture. Taking back what Marcus Webb had stolen and returning it to the families he'd destroyed. Mrs. Patterson, your willingness to fight back probably saved other families from becoming victims. Most people Webb targets don't have the resources or knowledge to challenge him effectively. On the drive home, Rebecca was quiet until we reached the South Carolina border. Mom, I'm sorry I let him turn me against you. Honey, professional manipulators know exactly what they're doing. That's why they're criminals. I should have trusted you over a stranger. You trusted someone you thought loved you. That's not a character flaw. But I was proud of her for seeing the truth when it mattered. For choosing family over the lie she'd been living. The Georgia Bar Association letter arrived addressed to both Margaret and her daughter. They wanted them to testify about other potential victims. When someone shows you their true character, do you believe them the first time? 2 weeks later, we learned Marcus Webb had been arrested in Florida. Attempting to target a 74-year-old widower whose family had hired security to investigate suspicious legal approaches. Patterns repeat until someone breaks them. We'd broken Marcus Webb's pattern. Time to rebuild what he tried to destroy. The judge's gavel came down softly. The estate is hereby restored to its original beneficiaries as per Robert Patterson's authentic will. December 15, Fulton County Superior Court. Judge Patricia Williams had reviewed 6 months of evidence, heard testimony from forensic experts, and listened to Marcus Webb's former victims describe how he destroyed their families. The ruling was clear: all amendments filed by Marcus Webb were fraudulent. Robert's original will stood unchanged. $22 million returned to the people he'd actually wanted to have it. Furthermore, Judge Williams continued, this court finds sufficient evidence of systematic fraud to recommend criminal prosecution to the fullest extent of the law. I sat in the gallery with Rebecca beside me. Samuel at the attorney's table. Jennifer Martinez in the front row. Her testimony had been crucial in establishing Marcus's pattern of courthouse manipulation. Mr. Webb's scheme relied on isolating elderly victims from their support systems, the judge said. He systematically destroyed family relationships to access estates he had no legal claim to. Rebecca squeezed my hand. Mom, we did it. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was sitting beside my daughter in a courtroom where truth had finally been heard. After the hearing, we stood on the courthouse steps. Atlanta's December air was crisp but not cold. Rebecca looked different, clearer somehow, like she'd been wearing glasses she didn't need and finally taken them off. What now? She asked. Now we go home and figure out what your father really wanted us to do with what he left. Agent Collins approached us before we reached the parking deck. Mrs. Patterson wanted you to know, Marcus Webb was indicted on federal charges this morning. Wire fraud, identity theft, elder abuse conspiracy. He's looking at 15 to 20 years. What about the other families? Asset recovery is proceeding. Your evidence helped us trace stolen funds to Webb's offshore accounts. The Morrison family will get their house back. Janet Coleman's savings are being restored. Justice served without fanfare. Just paperwork and proper procedures working the way they're supposed to. Truth always finds a way to surface. Subscribe for more stories where justice wins quietly but completely. On the drive home, Rebecca and I talked about Robert for the first time since his funeral. Not about money or wills or legal battles. About the man who'd loved us both enough to protect us from beyond the grave. Mom, remember how Dad used to say that real strength was quiet? He'd make decisions without drama. Fix problems without announcements. That's what you did. You fought like Dad would have fought. We stopped for dinner at a diner outside Greenville. Nothing fancy. Just 2 women sharing a meal and planning a future that belonged to them again. Rebecca, the estate is ours now. But I want you to understand something. Money doesn't make you family. Family makes you family. I know that now. Good. Because I don't plan to change how I live. Same house, same routine, same values your father and I shared. What about the investments? The properties? They'll keep growing. For your children someday. For the future Robert envisioned. As we left the courthouse, my daughter asked, Mom, will you teach me to be as strong as you? What's the most valuable thing someone ever left you, money or wisdom? Tell me below. We were family again. Not because of money. Because we'd chosen each other over the people who wanted to destroy us. Robert would have been proud. We planted Robert's favorite oak tree in the backyard on a Sunday morning, just the 2 of us, no ceremony needed. 6 months after the court ruling, life had settled into new rhythms. Rebecca visited every other weekend. We cooked together, worked in the garden, talked about everything except Marcus Webb. Some names don't deserve to be spoken in houses where love lives. The estate was properly managed now. Samuel helped me understand the investment accounts. The commercial properties generated enough monthly income to support 10 families comfortably. Robert had been a better businessman than even I'd realized. But the money wasn't the victory. The victory was Rebecca learning to trust her own judgment again. Learning that love doesn't require giving up your family. Learning that some people enter your life to take, not give. Mom, I got a call yesterday, she said while we planted the oak sapling. From who? A woman in Florida. Her name is Patricia Webb. I stopped digging. Webb? Marcus's ex-wife. She saw the news articles about his arrest. Patricia Webb had been married to Marcus for 3 years before she discovered his estate fraud business. She'd tried to report him to authorities, but he'd used his legal connections to discredit her as an emotionally unstable ex-spouse. She wanted to thank you for stopping him. Why? Because he destroyed her family too. Used the same tactics. Turned her children against her. Stole her inheritance from her first husband. Rebecca handed me the tree's root ball. We lowered it into the hole together. She said something that stuck with me. Your mother saved families she'll never meet by refusing to be quiet. The tree stood straight in its new home. Small now, but it would grow. In 20 years, it would shade the whole backyard. Long after I was gone, it would remind Rebecca of the day we chose to rebuild instead of just survive. Patricia's starting a support group for families affected by estate fraud. She asked if we'd help. What do you think? I think Dad would want us to help other people avoid what we went through. We watered the tree with the garden hose. Simple work. Honest work. The kind Robert had always preferred. That evening, Rebecca stayed for dinner. We made his favorite meal, pot roast with carrots and potatoes. Biscuits from scratch. Sweet tea that was probably too sweet. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. How did you know to fight back? Most people would have just accepted what Marcus said. I thought about that while we did the dishes. How did I know? Your father taught me that when someone tries to make you smaller, you have a choice. Get smaller or get stronger. And you chose stronger. I chose to honor what your father built. To protect what he trusted me to protect. Outside, the new oak tree caught the last of the day's light. Small but rooted. Growing towards something bigger. If Margaret's courage inspired you, hit subscribe. Share this story with someone who needs to know that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Comment below, what would you have done differently in her shoes? The strongest victories happen in whispers, not shouts. Truth doesn't need an audience, it just needs someone brave enough to speak it. Drop the one word that describes Margaret's strength in the comments below. They didn't applaud loudly. They nodded like people who finally understood. Open sky, cool air, the story finally written in a hand that won't be erased.